I think parents that are attracted to a Christian school, they want a school that integrates biblical teaching into the curriculum, an environment that fosters Christ-centeredness. I know parents have different opinions on what the Christian values should be, what the dress code should be, some of these other things that come out of that. But schools should do everything they can in their mission, their vision, their curriculum integration, character education to integrate this at the top level. If that pushes away parents, really, they shouldn't be there anyway.
Welcome to the BJU Press Teacher Edition podcast, where Christian educators are encouraged and inspired as we bring you interviews, practical ideas, strategies, and answer your questions about teaching in today's culture. And here's your host, Jenny Copeland.
Welcome back. I can't wait to get this next part of the conversation started. Jason Haas is back, and in part one, we talked about the challenges that Christian schools and teachers are facing. That was a packed episode, but we still have more to come. Let me remind you first to go visit our website and follow us on social media. Of course, we always appreciate your ratings and reviews. All right, let's jump back in. So going back to the example of the store, we can't just be oblivious to what's going on around us, to what elements are creating challenges and what we need to respond to. And obviously one major element, and perhaps in most situations, a gauge on our response to these challenges is enrollment. So for the teacher or administrator who's listening to this episode and in their mind, they do have a picture of the school up the road with the amazing new football stadium, the new buses, the incredible facilities and programs. What can be done? How can Christian schools attract and retain students in the face of competition from all other different types of educational opportunities around us? What do you think?
Oh, that's good. And I don't think it'd be wise for me to be too personal here, but we've been through this, me and my wife recently. And, you have to, on a scale, maybe we didn't do this, but the proverbial draw a line in the pros and cons and see what are the non-negotiables. Parents have to do that. Every city probably has a school that is higher educational program, higher athletics. And every city probably has a school that is more conservative, less educated. I've said this often. I don't know whoever said, I don't know wherever I heard it, but I don't know if being the more conservative, cheaper option is a winning formula forever. It possibly has worked for a long time for many of our schools, and it may in the future. I just don't know with the rising options of homeschooling, charter schools, less and less parents maybe as we go on see the need for a true Christian school. I know these Christian schools face pressure to retain these students, and you mentioned some of the things that can pull them, and you have recruiting concerns, and that happens all the time. I think affordability is also certainly an issue. I think probably Christian school teachers have bared the burden of Christian education for a long time, and by not getting paid maybe the way they should. And administrators are certainly facing where their tuition should be based on what the competition is. In our state, as I mentioned, we have a program that allows parents to apply for funds for attending Christian schooling, and that could radically change everyone's tuition models, everyone's pay structure, and we're certainly trying to preach a bit of wisdom and refinement right now as we go through this, because this upcoming year will be the first time we go through it. But maybe during COVID, I think you would say, and I've heard everybody say, that's when it seems like a large shift took place with parents seeing some of the things in the public school. I don't know. I've read multiple things. I'm not sure if that's the only reason that private schooling has increased to perhaps the highest number since 08, 07, 09, somewhere around there before one of the economic downturns. But I think affordability is important. I think having a safe and supportive environment, continuously improving. It just feels like there's so many things you could say here to retain students. In the end, I feel like if you feel loved, if your child feels loved and cared for, at least for parents like me who want a Christian environment, and the other things that are on the side, if they do them, let's do them good. I don't want them out of order. But if you hit enough of the things, I'm probably going to be at your school. And I know every parent has to make their mind up on where those certain things. I mean, you would be the same way. I have friends that would put different orders on where that stuff needs to be. And that's fine. That's all based on our worldview, how we grew up, how important this is to us, how important that is to us. But I know for me, I think that is a way schools can retain students by the areas I mentioned.
Yeah, and actually that segues right into the other overarching topic that I want to talk about today. So this is perfect. And that's understanding what families are looking for Christian schools. So we can say, okay, this is what we market. This is what we're so great about. But if it's not what they're looking for, we again miss the mark. So as we talked about at the beginning, a store that is oblivious to the interests and needs of the customers isn't going to be viable for very long. And that isn't to say that that store can meet the needs and wants of every single customer every time. That's not it at all. Of course, I think we all understand that. But as teachers, not just administrators, but as teachers as well, we have to have a pulse on what is bringing our families to us. What are they expecting to receive from our school? I think it's fair to start with Christian, okay? You've mentioned that several times of the priority, the order of things. Obviously, our families are looking to us to bring Christian to their school experience since they are looking at a Christian school. Of course, there are always those who are looking to avoid public education or looking for a place to spend their voucher, like you mentioned. But for the large majority, Jason, what are your thoughts on the importance to them of Christian in a Christian school, specifically in values and in foundation? What are your thoughts?
I would never change my opinion here. I think that has to be the core element. If you're only looking if the word private is more important to you than Christian, I feel like we're missing a mark. I watched one of your previous podcasts a few nights ago, and I think the speaker used the word private education a lot. And he meant, I think you said this, he just meant Christian education.
Yes.
But I think those have two different things. They certainly do in our state. We have a lot of independent private schools, and they do very well enrollment-wise. But I think parents that are attracted to a Christian school, they want a school that integrates biblical teaching into the curriculum, and not only that, but an environment that fosters Christ-centeredness. I know parents have different opinions on what the Christian values should be, what the dress code should be, some of these other things that come out of that. But schools should do everything they can in their mission, their vision, their curriculum integration, character education to integrate this at the top level. And I think if schools integrate principles like that and create an environment that fosters Christian growth where students not only receive a quality education, but a deep understanding of Christian values, if that pushes away parents, I mean, really, they shouldn't be there anyway. And I think that's kind of the day and age we live because we've had so many public school kids. And I'm glad they have come over and so many salvation decisions these last few years in schools, and I'm thrilled to hear that. But if there is a negative in our state of how the voucher system, which we call Opportunity Scholarship Program, the way it's worked, is there has been a huge culture shift in our schools. And some used to set a percentage. I've seen for the most part, it's just more open now because the schools are growing. Again, I'm thrilled for that. Building programs are happening. Teacher pays up, all this stuff that's happening. But if you used to be, let's say, a closed enrollment school, if you were used to be a school that was only for your church members, and the very next year you had 50% of kids that have never been at a Christian school, this whole point has to be foreign to 50% of your parents and how those schools are navigating all this. And I think they're doing the best they can. Every school has to do it different. Some maybe have backed off on that a little bit. For me, it's a core element. And if it's not there, I'm not interested. And if a school makes a stand on a Christian value or a spiritual formation issue and parents leave, I'm not sure they should have been there anyway, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is amazing how we can get sidetracked from being Christian in a Christian school, but it does happen. And we cannot be afraid to be Christian in our Christian school. We can't reason away for other reasons that we put that on the back burner. So I'm glad you pointed that out. So we have the foundation of a Christian experience in a Christian school, specifically a school where the Bible is at the core, where a biblical worldview is practiced and taught. But what about the environment itself? Jason, what do you think families are looking for in a Christian school environment, if you want to use that word?
Well, I think as long as Christian centeredness is there, second for me is love and care and safety. And every parent has probably dealt with this where teachers make or break the class. If there is an unfortunate situation where a teacher is not the best teacher, or maybe has some issues that makes her unloving or him unloving, that can, especially for young kids, that can really affect their entire year. It affects the parent's relationship with the teacher. The same can be said, I think, with teachers that are strict, disciplined, but loving and fair. And I think teachers feel best in an environment like that when, and students, I guess, when they're safe and supportive. And I don't know when it was, maybe last year, we always remember these unfortunate situations where there might be school shootings or something unsafe that happens in the U.S. or really anywhere in the world. It seems like it's happening. And I don't know many parents that don't spend the next few days kind of have nothing to be a helicopter parent at all. It's just you're letting your kid go and putting their safety in the hands of, in some cases, someone you may not know a lot about. And young kids are really helpless in situations like this. I think anytime a school raises money, implements safety measures, or anything else that makes a parent feel like that safety is a huge concern, I don't know many things that can involve a parent and get them involved more. I'll give more money toward a fundraiser if it's going for safety almost more than anything. So I know you touched on a little bit, but safe and supportive kind of go hand in hand. We have to have safe schools. And I believe we have seen the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years, I've seen, at least in our schools, more and more attention given to security systems, cameras, bulletproof doors, key cards, all this stuff that has happened. And I'm so glad that they have had the funds and the attention has been put into that.
Yeah. So there's a few elements there you mentioned as part of the environment itself. Let's talk teachers first. So multiple times in my life, I've heard someone say, I don't know what I want to do. I think I'll just teach. And all the true teachers out there right now just experienced uncontrolled eye rolling and maybe some audible noises of frustrated tone. Coming through the pandemic, one of the major earthquakes in education was parents getting to see what teachers do and what they teach. And now there's the negative side and a positive side to that. So the negative is that they saw the content or maybe the lack of excellence in teaching that was going on. But also on the positive, they got to see what hard work it is to teach. They saw teachers doing a great job in many cases. So the pandemic really put teachers on parents' radars in a different way. So what are you seeing more specifically, Jason, when it comes to parent expectations of what they see, what they want to know about their child's teachers? What are they wanting from that experience?
I felt this would be an opinionated issue because parents are coming from so many different walks of life, and so many of them are likely, or a lot of them could be unsaved and may not exhibit certain types of grace that I think only the Holy Spirit can provide. Sure. We tell our kids often, every time when we hear something, we're going back to teacher first. We'll find out. And I would say that's difficult. That's difficult for me, even when I'm like trying in this 30,000 foot view position I'm in. I'm trying to encourage others to do the same. But like when you get on the base level and you're the parent picking up your kids and your kid's crying because something happened, I'm like, well, shoot, let me park this car. I'm going to go and, I want to take care of it right now. Sure. But I feel like I see more of that type of attitude of quick reaction than ever. And I can see why teachers in today's world, especially those that maybe don't feel a true God called, they don't want to do it no more. We have all seen these second career teachers that have come in these last 3 or 4 years, and I appreciate them. They are filling holes that could not have been filled. I believe I heard Edward speak to this in a previous podcast, talk about that you can't add up all the Christian colleges together and have enough teachers right now. they're not being sent to the school, number one. So it's not necessarily the college's fault. And then they're not graduating. I mean, it's a cyclical thing, certainly. I guess what I would be trying to say is what I said earlier on that a teacher that is not God gifted. Training you can work around. I think you can work through that. But God giftedness, and you're just doing it like you said, because I think I'll just teach, they really do stand out. And the ones that God has bestowed some type of gift to them of empathy and teaching, love, care, they really stand out well. And I know just personally, I can remember the ones growing up that had an impact on my life. I can remember their names and great right now. Certainly know the kids, my kids' teachers this year, last year, year before. And I can tend to be a little over gooey in a sense of just email after email. I'm thanking you. I love you. We love you. We just go overboard because I just feel like it's really rare when you get a teacher that really can connect with the kids, put up with the mess of today's students and today's parents even, and in an environment where, especially if you're not a closed enrollment or maybe a school where like everybody from a very like-minded is coming. If you're coming from 200 different churches or even a lot of unsaved, they're not all like Jason Haas's kids in there. And maybe that's a great thing if you're talking about my sons. But I respect the teachers that I think do it the right way. And I know for me and my wife, and I think other parents do the best they can to support teachers. I think they have one of the hardest jobs. I think the administrator job, I say this often, I know my pastor friends don't like this, but it's by far the hardest job in ministry. The decisions they have to make on demand, and the amount of decisions they have to make it's really unbelievable. And right underneath that, I think the foot soldiers on the ground, the teacher is the next, or maybe a harder job, but certainly has a more of a direct impact on the kids in forming them, giving them confidence. Those kids will grow up and will speak one day of the teacher they had in third grade or seventh grade or eighth grade science. You said you could do that. I can do that as well. So, man, I don't know if we could talk this whole episode about teachers, and really I would have been happy to do that, because I think that is the key to this whole thing that we're talking about. You can have spiritual formation, but if you don't have the teachers to carry it out, forget what your ideals are. You can have athletics, great. If you don't have ADs and coaches, you can't carry it out. I mean, everything is based on the boots on the ground, for instance. And so thankful for the teachers in my life that God placed in my life.
Absolutely. Quickly, because I know we're running tight on time, do you have any quick input on class size? How is that, since we're talking teachers and students and the impact there, what's the impact of class size? Are you seeing that?
I think as a whole, class size is larger than it was years ago. I know many of our schools are in the between of, do we add, is it affordable to split? I think what used to be, 15 to 18 has grown to 22 to 25.
Yeah, it's creeping up there.
It is. And I think parents have done their best, especially if you have a TA in there, understanding what's at stake here. And not every class can be 12. That's not affordable. But I know generally, at least in our state, larger class sizes for sure have been at an increasing rate the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and it's amazing how even one more can feel like 10 more once you hit certain sizes. So, yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground today in identifying challenges that schools and teachers are facing, as well as those non-negotiables for families as they're looking at Christian schools. So as we wrap up, Jason, what advice do you have for educators who are listening today and sorting through some of these things in their minds and honestly looking at them in the light of a quickly approaching school year ahead? How can they respond to the information and what we talked about today? What advice would you have for them?
I didn't think of this originally, but as you were just talking, an overarching thing was something our pastor's preaching on, a series on, and it's you're not alone. Yeah, I notice it can be a very lonely job. It sounds weird to think that teaching could be lonely, but I really feel like it is. Certainly leadership is. I know so many people are in teachers' corners, and they don't get the credit they deserve, especially the good ones. And I certainly want to do all I can to help with that. I think in what you said, though, I know this is difficult in the day and age we live, but I feel to fully utilize a calling on our lives is we have to prepare. And preparation does not happen overnight. We have to prepare ourselves mentally, socially, spiritually. But I guess what I would be going on is more, we have to prepare ourselves educationally. I know God can gift someone in an area where they're not trained necessarily. I think on the other hand, an individual can receive training in an area maybe they aren't gifted in. But through God's guidance, when we see those individuals and ministries where the God giftedness that he gives us and the training line up, I think that's where you see individuals and ministries really stand out. So preparation, educational preparation, never ending, is certainly my first point. I think secondly, in our ever-changing culture, nurturing our spiritual growth, and always being in an environment that fosters spiritual development, being around others is so important. We hear it all the time, that the devil is certainly trying his best to find the cracks, and he knows all of us where our weaknesses are. This has to be at the forefront of the school, obviously, but I guess I'd be talking about more of the teacher and the leaders. We have to continue to foster our spiritual growth. And then finally, I guess, I know we talked about being distinct in several areas, but I want us all to be excellent in all we do. This is different for everyone. What someone feels excellent, the very next person may feel like it's average or too much. So I feel like as leaders, we have to have like awareness, maturity. I don't know if it's even a word, and do the best we can to surround ourselves with people that can speak truth to us and help us pursue excellence. So as education leaders, that'd be in our educational program, in our athletics and arts, in our safety environment that you mentioned, properly caring for our teachers and having leaders that are bold, but full of grace. I think in the end, if our giftedness can match our training as much as possible, and we nurture our spiritual growth, and if we're distinctively excellent, God can use us in ways that maybe we never thought he could. And the more we're excellent, the more that even is a self-accountability on top of us, because we know there's really only one way to do it. And it's always harder. It's always not the norm. Those kind of people certainly stand out, sometimes not in good ways. And I certainly understand that. But God has gifted us all in different areas. And we are stronger together. We are better together. And I hope some of the things I've said maybe a little bit can be an encouragement to somebody that these areas that God can utilize us, and certainly I hope he continues to utilize me in the few areas he has so far.
Absolutely. You know, God deserves our best and our students deserve our best. So we have three pieces of advice and a piece of encouragement, if we want to put it that way. So advice: prepare yourself, nurture spiritual growth, and pursue excellence. Those are fantastic. And then encouragement: you're not alone. There are people fighting with you, fighting for you every day. And it does feel lonely. Being an educator is a lonely place to be, but I love that you brought that out. You're not alone. We're in this fight and we're making an impact in students' lives. I mean, what better occupation could we have? So another year, more challenges, more expectations, but more blessings coming. And what a privilege we have to have a front seat in education for such a time as this. God put each of us here right now for this. Jason, this has been great. Your insights have been so helpful. I appreciate you taking time to be here today and for giving us some really great things to think about as we look forward to another school year. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your ministry, your leadership in this area, and technology integration, some of the other areas. So I appreciate you and look forward to seeing you in the near future.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you were challenged and encouraged as I was. Remember to go to teachereditionpodcast.com to submit questions for upcoming episodes. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media. Now, it's time to get back to your day, but it's not just any day, because every day in the classroom is your day to impact and inspire through God's power and through His grace working in you. Now, go do what God has called you to do.